Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. In this tutorial, I'll be using Photoshop to demonstrate how to take a purchase graphic and digital paper and transform them into a one-of-a-kind garden flag. I'll also be sharing my tips for success for sublimating a large flag on a smaller heat press, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll be using Photoshop CC 2021 for this demonstration. So depending on the version of the software that you have, things may work a little bit differently. So what I've done is created a brand new document. It's 13 by 19 inches. I have the Epson Workforce 7720. So this is the largest print I can print on a single sheet of paper. Now the flag size that I have, it says that, or it's advertised to be measured at 11.8 inches by 17.7 inches. But when I actually measured it, it's a little bit larger, and I would like to have a full bleed over the whole image. This is why I have chosen this canvas size to make my design. Now the other thing I've done is I've gone ahead and opened up a folder with the graphics that I'll be using today. These fireworks and the 4th of July graphic I purchased from designbundles.net, and then this paper, the blue with the white stars, I had designed that myself. So let's go ahead and get started. What I wanted to do was show you how to take, store-bought graphics, which look great by themselves, but just add a little bit extra just to give them just your own personality and a little bit of pop. So the first thing I'm going to do is just drag and drop this 4th of July graphic onto my canvas. Now you can see by dragging and dropping, it went ahead and created its own layer, and that's perfect. That's what I want. Then I'm going to hold down my shift key, and with the arrow in my mouse, I'm just going to reduce the size of this to, let's see, about 8.5. Now we can always change the size of this later on. And then center it in my page. Now you can see Photoshop shows me these magenta lines like a crosshair. So I know that that's centered on my page, and I'm going to hit the check mark. Now, like I said, my flag is not as wide as the 13 inches, but I'm going to make it that size because I want a full bleed. But what I want to make sure is that this graphic doesn't go too far to each side. So I'm just visually going to give myself a 1/2 inch down this side and a 1/2 inch down that side. Okay, so now we've got this one in place. I'm going to go over to my layers panel, and I'm going to click on new layer. And what I want to do is make a topper for the very top of the page. So to do this, we'll be doing a clipping mask. So what I'm going to do is go over to my rectangle draw tool, and on the fill color, I'm just going to change this to black so it's easier to see. And then I'm simply just going to draw a rectangle at the top of the page, and I'm going to make this, it doesn't have to be exact, but about 3.5 inches. Okay, so once that's done, just click back on the move tool, and then click anywhere in the background of the canvas. Then I'm going to drag and drop this digital paper of the stars. Okay, so I've got that on the page. Then I'm going to just place that at the top of my image here. Use my shift key, just hold that down, and drag that paper so that it completely fills that box. Okay, so you can see it overlaps the document just a little bit. Going to click on the check mark. Then I'll go back over to the layers palette. Now this is the layer with the image on there. If I hold down the Alt key on my keyboard and hover between those two layers, you can see a downward arrow. I'm going to click with my mouse, and now that rectangle that we drew has been filled with that digital paper. Now you can move the paper around. Just click on this layer here, and you can move that and position it however you like. So I'm going to move that up just a little bit, then click OK. Now I'm not going to make any more changes to this layer. So what I want to do is combine these two images. So just click the first one, hold your shift key, click the second one so they're both selected, go up to layers and say merge layer. So now that will all be one piece because I want to duplicate that and put it to the bottom of the page. So before I do that, I'm going to add a couple more borders to this design. So I'll click on the star paper, add new layer, go back to my rectangle tool, and then I'm just going to draw a line right here. Now you can see that the fill is black. So let me zoom in just a little bit, and I want to change the color of that. So I'm going to click on the fill, and I'm going to choose this gold color. Now this was just in this palette because I've used these colors before. If you want to pick something different, you click on this icon, and this takes you to the color wheel or the color palette, and then you can simply choose the one that you like. Okay, so that one's done, and I'm going to make this just a little bit more narrow, and I'm going to click OK. Now with that still selected, I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard and the letter J, and what that did is it duplicated the layer. So if I click here, I can bring this down. I'm going to make it a little bit larger, click the check mark, click on the fill color, and then I want to use the color from this design here. So I'll click on this little rainbow icon, and now you can see I've got a color picker. I'll just choose that red, hit OK, and it automatically fills it for me. So that looks pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let me see. Yeah, I think maybe I'll make just a little bit larger, this red one. All right, so that's all complete. So now what I want to do is duplicate all of this on the bottom of my page. So I'm going to click on the stars, hit Control J, then click and hold and just bring that down to the bottom of the page. Let's see, I'm going to move that off there a little bit. Then I'm going to do the same with the gold bar. Just click on it, Control J, bring that down, and finally click on the red, Control J, and bring that down. So now these are all duplicates. So the whole document is copied from the top to the bottom. So we're almost done with the design. We just need to make a few more additions here. So if you go over to my panel here with all my graphics, I want to start adding some of the fireworks. So what I want to do is on the 4th of July graphic here, I'm going to click on that. I can see this is the layer right here, the one that's gray. Now the first firework I want to be above that. So if I click on this layer, whatever I drag and drop onto my page will be above that graphic. Okay, so I'm going to hold down my Shift key and just resize this. And by holding down the Shift key, you're maintaining the aspect ratio of the image. Now let me increase this just a little bit, and you can see that's on top of the July. And in the beginning, when I said I wanted to be conscious of leaving a ½ inch at the right and left of the banner, I can see I've got plenty of room here. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger, but not much. Okay. So I think that looks great just about there. All right. Now the next firework I would like to place behind this graphic. So I'm going to click on it again so you can see I'm right here, but I want it to be behind. So let me bring down my layers panel. So here's my graphic, and then here's the background. So if I click on the background layer, whatever I place on there will be behind this layer. So click on background, drag on the other firework, Shift key and reduce the size with my mouse, and then you can see that goes behind the word July. Okay, and I'll resize that, maybe put it right about there. Okay, so I've got that one in place, and then the third one I'm going to put over here. So I'm just going to go to the top of my layers panel, click on that layer, and then just simply drag and drop that into place. Again, I need to be conscious of that ½ inch that I've decided to leave. So I'm going to bring this in, And then you can see when I go outside the graphic that the mouse has a curved handle. That allows you to skew the image just slightly, just like that. Maybe make that a little bit smaller. And there we go, that's perfect. So now I have all the elements on the page, and you can see here's what it looks like. Now we're going to add some effects to this just to make it pop. So as is, it does look quite nice, but let's go ahead and start adding some effects to this. So the first one I'm going to click on is the July 4th. And you can see it's grayed out. If I double click to the right, this will bring up the layer style palette. So I'm going to add a bevel and emboss. Now I'm choosing the default settings that are actually in Photoshop for this one. And then I'm going to add a drop shadow, and you can see that already pops it a little bit more. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a stroke. So if I click on the word stroke, it brings up the panel of choices, and I've chosen that gold color. So what I did was, went to the color palette. I can choose from here. Let me go ahead and choose that one. Click OK. And I have this set for 9 pixels. And then you have other choices here. So I have chosen outside. You can choose inside, and you can choose center. So again, that would depend on your personal preference and also on the image. I think this looks really nice, so I'm going to go with this one. All right, so we've added that. That already gives it a nice punch on the page. And then I'm going to go down to the firework graphics. So again, the layer that is grayed is the one that's selected. Double click to the right, and I'm just going to choose the bevel and emboss and the drop shadow for this one. I didn't care for the stroke. I'll put it on so you can see. I think that's a bit much for me anyway, so I'm going to leave that off. And then I'm going to go to the second firework. Let's see, where did I select that? Well, I didn't select it. There we go. Double click to the right, and again I'll do drop shadow and bevel and emboss. And then finally I'll click on this firework right here, and I will add all 3 effects to this one. So I'll add that stroke, and you can see I think that does look nice on there, and click OK. So that's all done. So let's just have a quick look at the July 4th graphic. So if I take all the effects off, there you go, it still looks good, but I think with those effects on there, it just gives it a bit more of a punch. So now we've got that done, I think I will add some effects to the border lines. So I'm clicking on the gold and double click to the side, and I'm going to just add a bevel and emboss to that one, and then the same on the red. Just do a bevel and emboss. And again, you can increase the levels of these if you like. These were just the settings that I preferred. And see, bevel and emboss. And then finally, the gold one. Bevel and emboss. All right. So Control and the letter 0 will center everything back on your page so you can look at it. And there's our finished flag. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a Photoshop document. That way I can always come back and edit it. But I'm also going to save a copy as a JPEG. And the reason I do that is this file is very large. It's a really big file to send off to the printer. So I prefer to save it as a JPEG, open that document, and then send it off to the printer. Okay, so I've saved my image as a JPEG and brought it back into the program. So this is significantly smaller, but I'll still get good quality from the print. So let's go to the print settings. And as I had stated earlier, I do have an Epson Workforce 7720. So I'm going to go to print settings. And I want to give you a tip here. If you've ever printed from the bottom tray with the large paper, sometimes you get a problem with the corner. It will either mangle the corner of the paper or it can leave a nice big ink stain. Neither one of those is desirable. So what I found is if I use the rear paper feed slot on the back of the printer, just pop that tray out, set your paper guides, and feed it through that way, I get a much better result and avoid those problems. So I've chosen that from the paper source. The document is the 13 by 19. I'm going to choose portrait. I'm selecting plain paper today. I get good results with that, and also standard quality. Print preview is very important, and if you go into more options, make sure you have mirror image selected. So I'm going to hit OK, and then that should make those adjustments. And you can see that I do have a bit of a margin all around. You know, I've tried doing the full bleed. Sometimes that gives me some issues, so I'm going to work with this today. And then I'm going to go ahead and say print. And then in just a second here, you'll see the Epson software pop up, and this will give me a preview of the document before I actually send it off to the printer. Now this is very helpful, especially if you've forgotten to check the reverse image on the selection box. So you can see here that everything looks great. I've got the full image on here, and it has indeed been reversed. So I'll go ahead and send this off to the printer, and then we'll go off to the heat press, and I'll give you some great tips for pressing a document that is larger than your heat press. So let me show you my technique for pressing a 13 by 19 image using a 15-inch by 15-inch press. The trick I have found is using a board. So this material, I'm really not quite sure what the name of it is, but I would describe it as a chipboard MDF type material. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick. It's got a nice flat surface and just slightly flexible. So you can look around your home or your hardware store to see if you can find something with those characteristics. Now before you put your heat press on, what I would suggest is you get your board, your butcher paper, your print, your flag, and another piece of paper. Put that all underneath your heat press and adjust your pressure to medium firm. Then go ahead and preheat your heat press to 400 degrees with a 60-second timer. So this is how I prepare everything. I put a piece of blowout or butcher paper on the bottom. You can also use parchment paper. Then I've got my print. Now you can see that my print, I designed it at 19 by 13 because I wanted to have a generous bleed on the flag. So what I'm aiming for is that this will come off the flag, the border, and then I'm just going to center it on the image, okay? But before I do that, I wanted to talk about sizing. These flags were advertised at 17 inches by 12 something. But what they do is they take the measurement from the seam on down. So you can see this paper is 19 inches, so the flag is about 18 inches tall. So that's something to consider when you're doing your designs. The next thing I'm going to do is decide, which part of the image do I want on the flag. So in this case, I'm pretty much going to center it, spend a little bit of time looking at where the stars fall on the top and the bottom. And I think I'll go with this alignment right here. That all looks great. And the other thing was I've got what I call pretty side down, and where the seams are, they'll be on the back. That's important as well. Then to adhere this, what I do, just place, my tape dispenser right there, flip this up, and then I use this one by Sulky. It's a temporary adhesive spray. I like this one because it's non-toxic. There's others on the market, so you can use whichever one you prefer. So you just give that a nice shake, a light misting, and then I just drop this down and smooth it out. Do the same on the other side. Just like that. And then for good measure, I think I'll just put a little bit of tape on each side. Okay. And then what I'll be doing is I'll put another piece of butcher paper on the top, and we'll take this over to the heat press. All right, so my heat press is all set up, it's preheated. And the next step is to get this all under here and aligned correctly. So I need to make sure that the platen covers all of the image. And the most important thing before you go any further is take this, the image here, and turn it so the flag is down and the print is up, okay? And I'm going to align this so that my print is under the platen as best as I can get it. And then I'm going to add one more sheet of blowout paper on top of this. And I'm going to, see, I can see this is not covering it all the way. So I'm going to push the board a little bit further back. Maybe just a bit more. Push this down. So that's medium to firm pressure, 60 seconds at 400 degrees. Okay, so time is almost up on this. And what I want to do is lift the handle as steady as possible. I'm trying to avoid as much vibration as I possibly can. So here we go. So I'm just going to hold my hand down and just lift that up. And I can see that that's pressed correctly. Now we're not going to move the print, we're going to move the board. So that second half gets slid under, just so it's underneath the platen. Make sure you've got full coverage. Now you will be sublimating over the first half a little bit. So I'm going to put that down. That's going to be another 60 seconds at 400 degrees. Okay, same process. Try and lift as gently as possible. And I can see that everything looks like it has sublimated correctly. So I'm going to just gently remove the blowout paper. And then I'm going to lift this and peel it away very quickly. Here we go. That should avoid any ghosting. And it looks like we got a perfect print. I can see that I got the full coverage on both sides of the flag. So that's what I was looking for. Let me get this tape off of here. And then I did have the what do you call it, the drop shadow on the graphic. And that actually has come out very well. I was concerned that that might show up as a little bit of a blur, but that has come out perfect. So that's how you press a flag. We'll take it inside and we'll take a closer look at it. All right, so let's take a closer look at the finished product. I must say I'm very happy with the results. I did put the flags on a kind of a creamy background so you could see the contrast. So we'll go to the top of the image. And what I was going for was aligning the stars at the top of the flag, getting that full bleed all the way across the flag, which I achieved. And as we come in closer and look at the graphics, they're very nice and crisp. Now I did add a drop shadow, and I was a little concerned that may show up as a blur, but you can see they came out just perfect. So very happy with that. And then here we are at the bottom. And you can see that flag was not straight at the bottom, so I couldn't get that full row of stars. But overall, very pleased with the outcome. I hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial. Most of the products used will be listed in the description box below. So until next time, be kind, stay humble, and start your day with a smile. Thanks for watching.